We'd like to invite Samantha Winter, the Country Operations Associate for Africa on CDPI.
Next, Mr. Edwin Rodriguez, the Director of Digital Transformation from Dominican Republic.
We invite Mr. Bonga Namgamala from Director of E-Government for Iswati. Sorry.
Hi. Please, Mr. Kanano Ramashamola, Principal Secretary of ICT Directorate from Lesotho. Not
We're
here?
still waiting for him.
All right.
Okay.
You can jump in later then. Then, His Excellency Mr. Yusuf Aribot, CEO of the National Agency for State Digitalization from Guinea.
We're still waiting for him. That's awesome. So we can invite Mr. Ahmed Tamim, Digital Solution Architect from Egypt. I'd like to invite also Emily Bennett from UNICC.
Then Ms. Brenda Maniragua, Project Manager and System Analyst from National Information Technology Authority, Uganda. Hi, nice to have you.
And finally, we're inviting Andrea Duarte, Advisor for the Department of Payment System of the Central Bank of Colombia.
And I'm equally happy to have co-moderating this session with me, Daniel Abadia from Center for Digital Public Infrastructure.
Thank you, Marika. And here with me, it's Marika Pop from Estonia and GovStack.
Yes, thank you, Daniel.
Please.
So, what this is all going to look like for the next 60 minutes is that me and Daniel together will walk you through some very interesting showcases, examples and stories hosted by GovStack and the Center for Digital Public Infrastructure of countries, but not only, since we also have UNICC here with us, on the stories and experiences and both successes and failures on the DPI journeys. And why I'm particularly happy of having both GovStack and CDPI here on stage today is that there are several entities, organizations, or companies, whoever, supporting those countries in the DPI journeys. And the example of GovStack and CDPI today is actually to showcase and illustrate what are the complementarities of those entities, what are the complementarities of those support in terms of capacity building, knowledge sharing, implementation support, partnerships, for a shared vision of DPI and how this can be put into practice. So for that reason, I'm really happy to have Daniel with me here on stage today. But we would like actually to kick off with Christop's presentation on what GovStack role is, how it's supporting interoperability, standardization, and how countries can make use of this approach and how it can complement and will complement CDPI approach on DPI. So the floor is yours, Christoph.
I have a presentation. I hope that it gets shown in a second. Very good. It's extremely wide, but hopefully you can read it. So it's very nice to see you all here. I'm the GovStack CTO, and I'm actually the former government CTO for the Republic of Estonia. And this is actually where I heard about GovStack for the first time. It was a little over 4 years ago when Estonian government was approached that such a sort of DPI type of effort is being conducted. And what do I think as a practical engineer? I've been writing code for the better part of my life. I actually wrote code late last night. And I still love doing this. So things that are about reusing, things that are about open source are very, like a very close passion of mine. But yes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about GovStack, the interoperable solutions for every society. You've seen the booth. If you haven't, visit us there. Let's talk. We are not selling you anything. GovStack isn't about selling you some sort of software or solutions. We're actually talking about how to improve the society as a whole by building more interoperable solutions. But I like to start with this AI-generated picture. This is what people, and I assume also you and your colleagues think that what digital governments are like. Very complicated, rocket science, very, very difficult engineering, a lot of complexity all around. This is not the truth. We like to imagine that we are doing rocket science and we are doing cutting-edge innovation. In many ways, we are doing very complex things, but in reality, what we are doing is converting one set of Excel data to another. This is the level of complexity, actually. When I was government CTO, I was looking at a lot of information systems that we were developing, and a lot of it is really about gathering this input data, churning it through a process, and ending up with a different set of input, like output data. This is actually what governments are doing, but it's very valuable work. But I would want to say that this is not rocket science, which means that anyone that tries to build it from ground zero, writing the code from the beginning again and again and again, is wasting a lot of time and wasting a lot of money. Because things that we're doing are shared by a lot of us here. We're talking about digital identities, we're talking about population registries, we're talking about financial information systems, how to collect and analyze taxes. These are shared by all of us. On the side, I am not saying that we should just use the same thing everywhere and every single country. I think that it's a very big role in building your digital government architecture to build solutions in a way that we can still be unique, still take into account our cultural needs, our cultural differences, but not everything is culturally different. So everything that we deem that we could share, we could actually reuse instead of building from ground up. I know how difficult this is because private sector often consults you the other way around because they say that you are so unique. You need your own systems. We are going to build you the perfect system that exactly maps your needs. But it's always something that you have to take with a grain of salt. They are often interested in their own income and their own money as a result. You should first always look at, are there already solutions out there that you can actually use? So regarding GovStack, GovStack is a community effort, which means that it involves a lot of volunteers across the sectors. It involves a lot of different countries, a lot of different people with different backgrounds. And GovStack, in many ways, is something that for me was very inspiring because I realized that, this is just a bunch of people coming together, a bunch of organizations coming together to look at this problem and seeing what can we actually share. For Estonia, this was a unique situation because we know that ITU was working on or discussing these things regarding DPI already years back. And for Estonia being involved, for us it was like a double-edged sword. For one thing, Estonia is pushing for the various technologies that we are known for, such as X-Road. And at the same time, thinking to change the whole world has been something that Estonia had tried before in European Union and had not been very successful because X-Road was something that we discussed in European Union already over 10 years ago. And it didn't work because the way how we saw data exchange differed from the way how European Union saw data exchange. And so once we realized in terms of GovStack is that there's already a capacity difference between Estonia and European Union, then how could GovStack as an initiative benefit from X-Road? But this was short-sighted, and of course it was 10 years had passed since then. I think that in terms of maturity levels, we are now today much more closer than we were 10 years ago. And things such as X-Road and the development of X-Road is something that today, under the umbrella of GovStack, we can definitely already consider. But GovStack is a community effort. So there's a GIZ involved there, DIAL has been involved there, ITU is involved, as well as Estonian Republic is involved. So it's a lot of different perspectives. And I'm very grateful that these different perspectives are there. Because just looking at it from the Estonian perspective is going to not be very beneficial. So already today and already yesterday, I've had passionate discussions about how do we solve the global issue. Because for me, interoperability is something that is very important for every single national sort of country to be interoperable internally. But for me, on the side, I'm very, very passionate about global interoperability. I'm very interested in that your citizens are able to access services globally with using their data so that they can get benefits that their government provides them even if they are not inside their own country. Same thing with companies. So the companies would have more benefits collaborating internationally. And it all comes down to global interoperability, which means that if we take into account that we build systems following similar standards, we are able to actually be more interoperable as a whole. So in terms of what GovStack really is about, it's about building blocks. I will put this screen here entirely. By building blocks, we mean that if you build a solution, let's say you build a tax service or you build your population registry, the idea of interoperability is that if you build other components, that they are interoperable, that they can collaborate, that they can exchange data in a way that both sides understand this data in the same way. This is what interoperability is about. It's about being able to coexist, collaborate, instead of having to always understand how the other side works differently than how you are working. Interoperability for me is about language. Today, I'm primarily speaking here in English. A lot of you understand English, and we are able to collaborate as a result. If each of us speaks different language and we are unable to exchange ideas, exchange thoughts, then collaboration is going to be very difficult, if not impossible. And this is exactly the role of GovStack and exactly the role of those building blocks. They are following the same standards by providing a unique individual value. So if you develop multiple systems in your digital government that follow GovStack standards, then the ideal, at least, is that they would be interoperable and become legacy like much, much slower, if at all. Jumping from here. So in many ways, it's a layered approach. So in the top, you have like your actual digital services. In the middle, you have a lot of those data exchange gateways for enabling this kind of interoperability, so to speak, so that all of your different domains can actually collaborate with one another. And of course, in the bottom, there are infrastructure standards and so on and so forth. Ideally, you would like to use similar standards like the GovStack principles across your digital government, but it doesn't take away your ability to build your own unique systems. As long as you make sure that your systems understand the language, such as the case, for example, in Estonia, every single digital system that a government provides, every single data source, speaks X-Road protocol. X-Road is also part of the GovStack sort of principles in terms of information mediator. So as long as you build a system that understands the language, you can use any kind of programming languages. Any kind of existing systems can be transformed to understand this language and then be accessible everywhere. As you've likely seen in the GovStack booth, you see like we have like multiple different corners of different things that we are focused on. I'm the CTO. I'm primarily focused on the specs, which means the GovSpecs angle there. But it's not just about us writing specifications. It's also about us enabling different software solutions to be compatible with GovStack. So if you want to integrate the spec, perhaps there's also already a solution that you can use and start implementing on the side of it. So definitely you can learn a lot more about GovStack by visiting the booth. We have a lot of very helpful people there from different backgrounds that are able to help you to make it happen. But I would leave you with two more things. For one thing is like what I'm focusing on in the next 2 years is to make sure that we have actually very strong, sustainable building block specifications to follow. We have been discussing already today that maybe they should be turned into a standard down the road, or maybe at least follow the process of standardization down the road so that they would improve in quality even further. But for me, it's very important that the standards or the specifications themselves are not enough, that there's also building blocks, actual software solutions that you can use that already follow those standards. So that X-Road isn't going to be the only thing, or the MOSIP is not going to be the only thing, but there are other solutions that you can use and select from. It's a goal of mine to make sure that each and every single building block actually has more than 2 solutions available for you to implement in your country. Because if we have more than 2, then we do actually enable a more interoperable economy. But I will leave you with one more thing, is that in the future we are heading towards what I call conversational digital services, which means that interoperability is going to be more important to you already today than it would be, let's say yesterday. Interoperability is going to be key to enable digital services to be provided with virtual assistants. What we actually want to do, each and every one of us, each and every family member that you have, is that we actually want government to support us like a friend across the table. They understand our problem, they're able to help us. I don't want to learn user interfaces. I don't want to learn those Excel sheets. I don't want to learn those complicated forums. I want someone across the table to respond to me in a human-like way if I'm explaining what my problem is, ask me for the data that I'm able to explain and give them, and they're going to help us get us through this. This is the digital government service that I'm actually expecting, a very human-centric digital government service. No forums, but actually data-driven, oriented towards my problem, digital services. And with AI, we're able to actually do this. But in order to enable AI to build these kind of digital services for you, you need interoperability. You need to follow specific standards, such as GovStack standards, to make it happen. And the very last thing is that there's a QR code. You can scan this and sort of learn how you could use GovStack for your country's perspective. This is actually also AI-driven, which means that what you can actually do is that you can explain what country you are, what are your priorities, and it will give you an immediate initial assessment and recommendations for you to follow. So you can already describe a little bit of what you're focused on, and it will look at how GovStack could actually help. So you can immediately see that GovStack, which is very complex, if you look at everything that we're offering, you can see what you could actually focus on. So do take this with you and share it with some of your colleagues that are actually responsible for building digital governments. So maybe this can be helpful, and then we can discuss further in the booth. Thank you.
Thank you, Christos. So I'm going to introduce our second brief speaker. I want to pick the point. We're going to do this. Okay. I'm going to basically, Christos talk about community, and Marika, you talk about that, and that's basically the idea of GovStack and CDPI, seeing how we can help countries move forward and develop better solutions for your residents, for your people. And the idea of different building blocks is what we do in CDPI. The Center for DPI, we are a non-profit organization that we work with countries. And as Nandam said yesterday in the keynote, or maybe promote today in the morning, this is about the evolution we have on DPIs and building blocks and efforts. So I want to give the floor to Samantha Quinter from our team to explain a brief of what's this rapid approach to solutions called does. Please, Samantha.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Dan introduced me, my name is Samantha Quinter with the Center for Digital Public Infrastructure, basically doing a lot of DPI work across the continent, particularly in Africa, and working around country engagement and the support that the countries need on a pro bono tech advisory path to make sure that countries are also adopting DPI. So what I'm going to talk about today is one of the approaches that CDPI uses on rapid deployment, or rather to quick scale and quick adoption of DPI in country. And as Center for DPI, we have these 5 main architectural principles that we really try and work by. And of course, as you've heard from the GovStack team, you can't have DPI conversations without the word interoperability. I think it's something that we keep hearing in every DPI conversation that is out there. So we don't even need to go deep into it. I think at this point, everyone knows what interoperability is, and it has been really well explained here. But again, just to reemphasize on the 5 principles that we have minimalistic and reusable building blocks, which is, rather than creating an end-to-end solution, try and build reusable building blocks that would allow the sort of ease of communication as well with different, because you don't have to build a full-on system by the time you're coming up with, so as an example, let me give you this. We have countries that are looking to get into DPI. Unfortunately, or rather fortunately, they say, we already have this and this system. So then how do we go about this? So just trying to build on top of those by having the reusable and minimalistic approach in the building blocks. And the minimalistic approach really allows for scale, right? And then the third principle that we have is diversification and inclusion. You want the innovation or the technology that you're coming up with to really cater for a larger, not just a smaller group, but to allow inclusivity and diversity within the country and basically the continent and the globe at the end of it all. So federated and decentralized systems, and of course security and privacy by design are also very key important things for us. And then now the categories that we have mostly at the Center for DPI that we really try and really work on, or rather that we have worked on, we have these 5. We have identities, we have payments, data sharing, trust infrastructure, discovery and fulfillment. Say you want to access goods, let me start from that, and you want to access goods, then how do you know, you creating systems really that allow the service offering of services via the open protocols and APIs. At the same time, following that, you can go to payments where you see, am I able to pay for these services that I've received with an ease, with a matter of ease? With identity, which is something that is very strong in this conversation, is does the person who is the entity or the individual, are they who they say they are? And data sharing and credentials, which I think Pramod really spoke about this morning. Can you share data and history, allowing it to also be verifiable without being tampered with? This is some of the important things that we look at, and we try to advise country on this. And again, as Dan said, it's completely pro bono, so we do not charge. We just go through with you and have this technical architectural session with you. So some of the partners that we work with at the Center for DPI are right here. We have the funders beat, we have research in terms of papers, writing and whatnot, and we have the implementation and advocacy, and that's where we've managed to work with the GovStack team, not just here, but even in different countries. And I liked what, there was a previous session here where Director Mashaka from Tanzania said he learned a lot from the situation with GovStack, learned from GovStack, and then also did a research in India and saw how they're doing it. So it's not really a competition, it sort of complements each other. And these are some of the partners that we have working towards the DPI goal. So in terms of something that the center has really been keen on working on is something called DAS, which is basically rapid deployment across the globe. So in a nutshell, it's DPI as a package solution. The aim of this is to try and help countries implement quicker, faster, within 90 days, say, so that you can actually have a working solution. So how does this happen? We are currently looking at 3 areas: the digital IDs, the government-to-persons mapper, and credentialing. These are the 3 areas. As an example, we've been working on a project on G2P particularly. We've worked on another one on digital IDs, but I feel like the G2P is really powerful because we find a situation where a country wants to transfer funds to its citizens who are, say, affected by a certain issue. From my country, we had a situation where you have COVID was still very fresh, and they needed to send out some money to persons. Unfortunately, you have someone coming in between, double dipping, someone taking twice the amount they're actually supposed to pay. So how can we create systems in country to allow the government to send money directly to the intended person? And of course, this is justice for the people, and it also saves the government on a lot of costs as well. So these are the 3 areas that we've discussed from the 5 principles that we have, and this is what DAS is so far at least looking at. So just to explain DAS a bit more, it's a package solution, a combination of open source solutions and ecosystem mobilization. During this summit that we are here. We have digital public goods, we have countries, we have service providers, system integrators, we have the GovStack team and the CDPI team who are trying to catalyze the process of DPI in country. So what we try and do is have all these people mobilized in a DAS approach. So we have a package funding and legal contracts. We have some documentation really framed out between, say, a digital public good and a country. And CDPI comes in here because we do the technical architect. We try and make sure that at the end of the day, the needs and the goals, the pain points of the countries are really catered to, and there's no mishap in between. So we have the package funding and legal contracts, productized, hosted, open source with the cloud. So we have some conversation with different clouds. Some countries want to host their systems in country. Others want to have this with a cloud provider. So we try and give the country a package solution, including the funding bit, right? So you've seen from the previous slide, we had the funders on oh, sorry, it went the wrong way, sorry. You saw from this slide that we had a number of funders who are willing to help countries get to that level. We have the implementation and country engagement partners. Okay, no problem. So with all this combination, we try and make sure that the country has sort of a blend of all these people together, providing the support that they need to make sure that they can at least pilot a DPI within 90 days. So this is basically the approach. Funded service provided. We also try and make sure that the service providers are trained in country, because at some point the DPGs will leave the country. At least you need someone to pick up from where they left off. So we have the funded service providers, the packaged product that we are offering, whether it's on ID or in verifiable credentials. Then we have the DPG on ground for your guidance. And then we have now CDPI. This is where we come in on the advisory track, and of course with other countries. So that being my time, I would love to have this conversation a bit more and see how we can partner up and move the DPI agenda ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. This was truly insightful. But now we get into the true stories from the actual field work, some very practical insights into different countries, but also entities like UNICC, reflecting on what was just described or what's provided by GovStack framework and CDPI. So what have actually been the steps and the measures put in place, either with the support of GovStack or CDPI or any other partner for that matter, in actually making the DPI journey a success one. I'd actually like to start with Emily from UNICC, which is an organization that's already collaborating with GovStack. And based on what you heard from the previous engagements, but also looking forward to hear that, could you perhaps elaborate on how UNICC support for the GovStack sandbox and the provision of the Git mirror is actually supporting the and providing the equitable access to code repositories, for example, and how do you envision this support could further foster the adoption and reuse of open source digital solutions globally? So thank you, Emily.
Do you want to come here? It's easy. While we fix that, do you want to speak from here? Okay, please, so we can move.
Thank you very much. So to reflect on your question, UNICC, we've worked for decades on capacity strengthening and being a neutral place for digital solution and infrastructure support. And in that work, we really focus on efficiencies and best practices, shared use cases, and replication. And for equitability and sustainability purposes, particularly, we leverage open tech, especially around use cases that we've implemented: intergovernmental trade, tokenized digital ID, fostering partnerships with CSOs and implementing partners to empower local communities. And so for us, the collaboration within Open Source United initiatives, UNICC empowered a communal GitLab repo and open wallet mirror. And that is really a foundational pathway to shared contribution and use of open digital solutions for the UN community, for the constituencies that we serve, and also for parties who can engage with us to advance our work and accelerate digital solutions. And to speak specifically on our work on GovStack, very important work. We're a natural collaborator here. We're a center of excellence for digital trust, being a UN entity, and really around cybersecurity. We have a lot of different types of competencies beyond infrastructure and hosting services, which is really a key aspect to our collaboration with GovStack particularly, but really around competency building. So for many years, we've been working within the UN sphere and specifically to serve the mandates of the UN entities within our community. And so for us, competencies to really work with entities like CDPI to really understand what are the requirements and how to build pilots, how to help post, when you get to a point of kind of post-pilot, what happens there, how to work with the different infrastructures that are already in place to leverage the digital building blocks and to help accelerate, respecting what's there, what may need to be the future, and looking at all of these pieces across time and across a spectrum of other aspects of use. So these are areas where UNICC, I think, can really help support this work. And for us, it's really an honor, because the meaning of the digital building blocks, the acceleration of really equitable access for communities in need, women, youth, vulnerable, and marginalized communities, is really also the work of the UN. And so for us, it's quite an honor to be able to participate in this work with GovStack and CDPI and many of the other initiatives that UNICC is supporting around open source. So thank you.
Thank you, Emilia. Please take a seat. And what I particularly like about Emilia, and thank you for this, this brief intro into what UNICC is doing, is that it actually illustrates the complementarity of different entities and different organizations in actually supporting countries in the DPI journeys. So there is no single entity that will do the magic all alone, but actually the beauty of the game originates from the fact that we are many and we actually support each other. Daniel, would you like to take over?
Yes. So I would like to go now to the Caribbean, to Edwin Rodriguez from Dominican Republic. So you're right now in the challenge of implementing verified credentials with the IDB, co-develop, and CDPI. So can you walk us in 3 minutes on what's the challenge of doing verified credentials, and also how our organization can GovStack can come in and help continue and expand that initial idea of verified credentials for the island?
Okay. Thanks a lot, and thank you for inviting us to this panel. The Dominican Republic is in an ambitious path to implement verified credentials nationwide. And because it's a critical component for us, but the point is, how do we make it that is interoperable nationwide, but also internationally? So, and maintaining sovereignty over data in the Dominican Republic. This requires a dedicated balance between adopting these global standards and customizing solutions in the national context. Another challenge is the coordination between different government agencies. This path has to be smooth between all the systems, legacy systems that are in the Dominican Republic. And requires a robust governance, as we know, change management, and capacity building efforts at all government levels. At this moment, then, frameworks like GovStack can be highly complementary. GovStack modular approach with a focus on interoperability, this is very important for us, and standardization, provides the blueprint that allows us to build a scalable solution. GovStack can align with global best practices without reinventing the wheel. This is key. Using predefined building blocks, as we saw before, to expedite the development and the deployment of these verified credentials. Moreover, combining the strengths of CDPI, rapid DPI rollouts with GovStack structure approach, this helps us not only to move quickly, but also ensures a long-term sustainability, enabling a smoother cross-border interactions and data exchange. The key here will be integrating both approaches while fostering a collaborative environment that promotes innovation, capacity building, which is key, as I said yesterday in the DPI for education. Capacity building is key in all this, and also data security always. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin, and I can trust you that Dominican Republic is really an exemplary use case from that part of the world, so I would truly recommend you keep an eye on the path forward. But out of respect for our host, Mr. Tabin from Egypt, we all know that Egypt and the Egyptian Ministry of Communications and ICT is an absolute role model in DPI development. The question that I would actually like to ask you is that, what do you see are the challenges based on Egypt's experience that countries should expect in the development of DPI? And what are the key requirements or aspects that you consider are the most important and relevant based on Egypt's long and very complex journey in this world? Thank you.
Thank you. Let me start with 3 key principles that I learned from DPI and GovStack, and yesterday from Nando's. First one is to inclusion. No one left behind. No one left behind from my perspective is no one left behind as a citizen to engage in service design or service feedback or delivery in the service itself. No one left behind for employees. Employees must have a good capacity planning, engaged in design the service or applications that will be implemented in their environment. No one left behind, it means to include poor people, elder people, people with disabilities. So the first one is a key component for any digital transformation. The next one for me, as also Nando says yesterday, government not work as a silos. We should work to build vertical capabilities. We are a government as a whole. We should work to leverage and build vertical capabilities that will benefit for any government service. The third one is the principle from GovStack is the reusability and interoperability. If you think to start to build an application or start an idea, you should think first how this idea or application will be embedded in the whole of the government. So for me, these are the three main pillars. Let me give you some highlights from Egypt to imagine the impact or the resilience of DPI in Egypt. We have digital identity that enrolled about now 9 million people or 9 million citizens with high availability and no single attack. We have a payment gateway that now serves all government of Egypt. We have centralized settlement account and settlement processes for settlement and reconciling all government payment and for digital services, no silos for any payment transactions. We have our own in Egypt, Misa Digital, with an instant payment network for any payment transactions, and we are now onboarding about 40 million mobile wallets that are non-banking users. We are building also Digital Egypt, which now have more than 50 million transactions, successful 50 million transactions. And for your info, most of them related to social protection services. We all, in the beginning, expecting that poor people will not go for digital services. After we go and roll out the applications, we expected that 70% of services for social protection, especially indicating about supply and the bread, 70% go for digital and leave the manual processes. Why they go there? Because we have flexibility, observability, and no one no employees in the middle. You and your mobile, you ask for a service, instant reply, you eligible or not, and get feedback and get your service with any obstacles. Another one related to data sharing. Data sharing components, it's a major component. Data sharing component is not only about the technology itself. We may get the best technology in the world, but we must have a data law and data regulations for to govern how the data it be transferred from government to another government. Now we have around 2.5 million transactions per day in our data sharing platform, and we define that we are in the beginning because we now looking for have another phase of our data sharing platform to onboard another components like event-based architecture. It's need more and more new components. Another topic related to data, how to send data from government to government to serve citizen at large. They are the key principles and the challenges and some insights from us. And thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed, for this truly detailed and insightful, let's say, lookout for, on the one hand, the opportunities and the challenges. And Egypt is really a showcase on how these different components, and this also applies to partnerships and the entities that you've been working together, can actually be put together and wrapped up nicely. So congratulations on that. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Yes, and I like the approach of inclusion and accessibility, and I get also with empathy as those core values on when we design, digital services and DPI, and they're extremely aligned to the safeguard, framework. So I'm going to keep, now I'm going to still in the region, so I'm going to go to Brenda from Uganda. And so Brenda, the Uganda government recognized ICT as a critical to the delivery of its national vision for 2040. And has made substantial innovations and investments in DPI. How have you managed to align to your digital transformation goals with the broader national development agenda? Can you walk us through in a brief time that?
Thank you, Danny. On our side, it has been a very intentional move when we're aligning our digital transformation. Let it be plans or strategies. They were very intentional to make sure we don't lose sight of the national vision. So that meant that we had to benchmark each and everything that we did if it came down to the laws and policies or regulations that we were doing. These are the areas of cybersecurity or data protection or gender initiatives. We had to make sure everything that we're doing just lines up to that. You'll read through it. We currently have, I had a colleague from Tanzania in the previous panel talking about their interoperability framework and enterprise architecture. And those are one of the things that we actually have to benchmark through all the visions, the policies that we have, so that we are not losing sight, because at the end of the day, DPI its heart is for the people's transformation. So it would be counteractive to actually do something that's not aligning with the people. And luckily, the Vision 2024 also the Vision 2040 aligns with actually helping the people move in the positive direction. So that just streamlines into everything that we've done as an organization and also as a country. For lack of a better word, I will use the Ugandan version of X-Road, which is UG Hub. It goes down to the digital signature solution we have. Every digitalization move we have made does not go just in the line of digitalization for the sake, but it's looking at what's the impact at the end of the day. How is interoperability helping us save our economy? So that will then draw into the lines of our financial inclusions, mobile money, how is it working? We learned this from our colleagues in Kenya. They've actually surpassed us with the M-Pesa, but that's what we are trying to do of all these initiatives, how are they aligning, all the other ministries as well, much as if I bring you back to the X-Roads that we are working with, I call it X-Road in Uganda, it's called UG Hub, and it brings all ministries together. So we are able to collaborate in all different initiatives as Ministry of Trade brings in the startups, innovations. Then we are able to help us there with our BPO efforts, and then that's when DPI comes in. So I could just summarize it and say it's been very intentional, not losing sight of the goal, not losing sight of the heart of the people. How are we helping them? So that digitalization is not just for the sake of ticking checkboxes, but actually helping the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. I'd actually now like to take the opportunity and continue with Andrea from Colombia. First of all, thank you for joining us after such a long trip. But the reason why I'm particularly happy to have Andrea here with us is that Colombia is about to launch a new interoperable low-value fast payment system already in 2025. And it's called BRIBI, right? Did I pronounce it correctly? So, Andrea, what do you think are the key lessons that other countries or participants of the DPI ecosystem can actually learn from Colombia's approach to creating a low-value, fast payment system within a DPI framework?
Yeah, thanks, Marika, and thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to join this event. You are right, we are about to launch this new interoperable fast payment system next year. It has been a long journey so far. The Central Bank of Colombia has been working very hard with the private sector because in Colombia happened that fast payments are actually made by private actors. And we have not one, not two, but 3 switches in charge of the clearing and the settlement and all the processing of the fast payments. So the central bank has to consider different scenarios about how to implement a public policy about DPI for fast payments and real and full interoperable payments in the country. So we had different options and possibilities. We thought about making everything from scratch, but obviously that means too many costs and discarding many investments that the private sector has done so far. The second alternative was to, okay, let's take the status quo that we have in Colombia and complement it, but not in a structural way. And the last option was to make a hybrid model by combining the private efforts, but introducing new rules to make a real interoperable system for all the Colombian people. So that was the last scenario that was chosen. And now we are developing a centralized infrastructure that is in charge of the central bank, but we have also to connect with all the private switches and rails to allow them to continue to develop their business models. So this is a very big lesson for us, and I think for many other countries that also are starting out this journey. So basically, there is not a unique standardized way to implement a new architecture. We were trying to copy, for example, the very successful model from Brazil, from PIX, but we realized that it was not possible because that means a lot of cost, and maybe we can damage also the incentives for innovation from the private sector. So we are now very close to all these switches, all the PSP in the industry. We have made a big forum when we are receiving all this feedback permanently about the new updates. And in this moment, we are in the stage of the implementation. So we have been creating different working groups in several topics. For example, we create a specific table to talk about what is going to be the brand of this ecosystem, and that's how we get the new name Breve en español, what it means brief, and it was very good, very well received among the population right now. We have also working groups on messaging standards, technical issues, and also we are talking about promotion and advertisements with the private industry. So I think this partnership between the public and the private sector is essential for a country like Colombia that had background completely different maybe that from other jurisdictions. And right now we are also fostering innovation by allowing many payment service providers, technological enterprises, acquiring businesses to plug also to the ecosystem. And the framework has been made flexible enough to allow all these new actors to join us in the ecosystem. And finally, I think a big lesson also is to foster all this access. So basically in Colombia, even when we have all these switches, they were non-interoperable with each other. So now with the infrastructure of the central bank, we are allowing, and we want obviously to bolster all the electronic payments in the economy. Even when we have a lot of advance so far, is still 70% of the low-value payments in the economy are still made by cash. So we have this big bridge, and we are working to implement this DPI institutional framework that we didn't know that we were made it. So that's the big lesson, I think. Thanks.
Thank you. So I would love to hear two more delegates. So I want to go to the delegate from Eswatini, Bonga. So Eswatini has a unique political landscape. What are your thoughts on navigating the process of implementing DPI with a limited infrastructure and resources? So can you please, your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Daniel. Eswatini, of course, is a small nation in the southern part of Africa with just 1.2 million people. So we are in between big nations, South Africa and Mozambique. So yes, with a small economy, we are also one of the meekly income growing countries, and so resources are limited. So, but as a country, we've been intentional in terms of wanting to provide easier services to the citizens, wanting to make sure that we bridge the digital divide. We make sure that our citizens get the best from the country. And so we've been trying to build the infrastructure required. I've just seen here all the basic building blocks that are required, and I see that we have managed to put some in the few years to put some of them in place, like the registries, to integrate the payments, to make sure that we do have a national identity card system, but we are currently now moving to electronic ID. So I would say, because we started our program, the e-government program in 2013, but all these years we've been moving around in circles. We put some of the services we digitalized. We put them on the digital platforms, but in a silo approach. So now when we come here now, learning about the DPI GovStack approach, we sat down and we saw that we've been delayed for many years. So we are now adopting to say now it's better we do it this way, so that we are able to capacitate ourselves as well, so that we can reuse, we can grow, we can be able to reach our end as quick as possible. So I'll just say, as a Swatini, we are excited to join. We have seen the other countries that are ahead of us, and we are saying, why not come in and do this thing in an easier way? So we can say it's good for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonga. And the particular thing I like about this short intro is that in the DPI journey, really the size does not matter. And the thing of size can be very controversial. So you can see the stories told by Egypt and Eswatini next to each other and Dominican Republic. These are very different countries with very different resources, infrastructures, and legacy systems in place. So you can see that there is no one size fits all, but definitely everybody has a complete win-win situation. So thank you for pointing that out. And actually, the last words of this panel, and I'm sorry we're a bit over time. I'm very happy that Mr. Kanono from Lesotho is here today with us, because actually GovStack organized a building block deep dive workshop aiming at digitizing government services in Lesotho only February this year. So a very recent engagement, and thank you for having us. And in the course of this exercise, there were 3 priority areas and prospects for GovStack implementation selected, namely national ID, social grants, and agriculture extension services, a very diverse selection. So could you elaborate that, which were the reasons that you were choosing to start your journey with those building blocks specifically? And what are the next steps now that will be implemented in this journey?
Thank you, Marita. Let me begin by expressing my heartfelt thanks to the government of Egypt for organizing this event. This is a very good platform to discuss these important DPI topics and also to share our experiences. To reflect on our question, let me just give a brief digital context of Lesotho. We are also a very small country, just over 2 million people. In terms of connectivity, we have covered over 95% of the population with broadband. We have a national ID that is fully digitized but not digital in the definition of digital ID. We also have a very good mobile money environment. Over 70% of the people are using mobile money, but it's mostly for cash transfers. With that context, let me just say we decided to start on the DPI journey because our economy at the moment is mostly relying on primary sectors like construction and manufacturing. But with these digital foundations that I just mentioned, the connectivity, the national ID, the digitized national ID, the mobile money, we saw the opportunity to actually change the structure of our economy. So we shopped around, like Swaziland. We have the e-government project that started a few years ago, but nothing was coming out of it. So we shopped around, then we came around GovStack. That's when we invited GovStack to Maseru to come and help us on how we should move with the e-government services. But we immediately noticed that we needed a North Star that will guide us through this journey. So we did our digital transformation strategy, which now we use as our compass for navigating the digital transformation. And then we also came across the concept of DPI. And we saw synergies between GovStack and DPI. Like you said, we identified agricultural extension services as one of the use cases during our workshop, the digital ID and the social grants. What we are currently doing, we are working with ITU to map the process and re-engineer those processes in such a way that we'll be able to implement them in a modular way using the GovStack approach. We are also looking at our legislative environment. We currently have a long list of bills that we want to send to Parliament because we are way behind in terms of the legislative environment. We are also working with World Bank. I think very soon we'll be starting work in terms of developing our interoperability framework and also enterprise architecture framework. We are also working with CDPI just to use their expertise to ensure that we move faster. We have actually committed to certain timelines in January, that in January we should start trialing the digital ID. We should also start trialing the payment gateway around the same time. So I think with the assistance of partners and organizations like CDPI, we'll be able to move faster. Thank you.
And it's a wrap-up. First of all, I would like to massive thanks to all our panelists from very diverse backgrounds, very diverse geographical coverage. So thank you, Daniel, for being the co-moderator with me here today.
Thank you, Marika, for being like a
So it makes an excellent teamwork. Yes, apologies for going over time a little bit. But apart from that, I wish everybody a very exciting days in Egypt ahead of us. Thank you for having us make the most of the time in this beautiful country. I hope to see you again somewhere in your DPI journeys, and enjoy the summits, and visit our GovStack booth in the exhibition area for any further insights and meetups, either with Krista or any of our team. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Daniel. Have a nice day.
All. Have a good day. Bye. There's lunch downstairs if you want.